Emerging from the vibrant city of Detroit, Michigan, our next guest's artistic journey began at the tender age of 2. For many years, he has taught art and creating satire sketches to illustrating children's books. He has crafted an impressive body of work, including The Gardener, which has earned him a Caldecott Honor. His renowned book, So You Want to Be a President, secured the prestigious Caldecott Medal, solidifying his place in the world of children's literature. Adding to his accolades, One Cool Friend received another Caldecott Honor. With a remarkable talent for storytelling and illustration, it is my privilege to introduce the acclaimed artist, David Small. Your transition from doodles on telephone pads to becoming a celebrated illustrator is quite remarkable. Could you elaborate on the pivotal moment that pushed you toward pursuing art as a career?
Well, I have been studying art since I was about 21. I thought of myself as a fine artist with works hanging in museums. So I had a day job for about a decade teaching on the college level, teaching drawing and design and printmaking. And I switched schools, came to Michigan and taught at a small college called Kalamazoo College. In the 80s, they ran out of money, like everybody else. And so I found myself out of work. And I had never thought of myself as an illustrator, but that was just about all the only thing that I was suited for. And so I got myself an agent in Chicago who started getting me work with magazines, and then I got a New York agent who did the same. And meanwhile, I had had one children's book published just as a whim. Never thought of myself as a children's book illustrator, but the book was won some acclaim. And what happens in that world is when you have a success, you start getting passed around from publisher to publisher. At least that's the way it used to be. This was all pre-computers, and so everything was word of mouth and friends and networking. And after my one book, I suddenly had 2, and then 3, and then 5. And when I did book number 5, which was called Imogene's Antler, suddenly success befell me because it became a TV show called Reading Rainbow. It was a segment on there, read by Imogen Coca, who was an old TV comedian from the 50s whom I adored and had named my character after. That's when my children's book career took off. And I had never really imagined myself as having a career like that, but one thing led to another, and I've done close to 60 books all these years later.
Your body of work includes both writing and illustrating picture books. What draws you to this medium, and how do you approach the process of creating stories visually?
For me, it's been a matter of reading picture books, good ones. Back when I first started, I went to a library in New York that had all the Caldecott Medal winners in it. And I looked at a good deal of those. But I would say that most of my illustration came from watching a lot of movies. I should say I have a foot in both worlds now. I've done all of those picture books, but I've also done 3 graphic novels that have been quite successful. And I think it's even more apparent in my cinematic influences are much more apparent in the graphic novels, but they've always been there.
You received a multitude of prestigious awards for your illustrations, including the Caldecott Medal, the Caldecott Honor, and the National Book Award Finalist.
Yeah.
How do you feel these accolades have impacted your artistic journey and the reception of your work?
Well, prizes are very nice because they make people pay attention. Librarians might buy more of your books if you want to Caldecott. That's about it. You know, they increase awareness of your work. You know, it helps to have a Caldecott under your belt to find better stories by better writers. A lot of my art education was at a state school in Detroit, Wayne State. And after that, I got into Yale for graduate artwork. My experience at Yale was not so great. Comparing it to my education at Wayne, it didn't really satisfy very much. I could go into that, but I won't. The point is, I got a degree from Yale, and that opened doors, just that little piece of paper. And it's the same thing with a prize.
Is there any prize that you're most proud of?
The National Book Award finalist at the moment means a lot to me, but that's because it's current, or more or less current. That was 10 years ago. I don't think about them very much, quite frankly.
Many of your books have been adapted into animated films and musicals. How does it feel to see your stories brought to life in different artistic mediums? And what do you think each medium brings to the narrative experience?
It was a wonderful stage production in New York. They made Imogene's Antlers into a musical. The writer and composer were just brilliant. It was very funny and very fun to sit through. They travel around the country with their shows, and I think it was on there for several years. But then, of course, they had to change their program. I like that.
I love the title, The Werewolf at Dusk and Other Stories. It seems to evoke a sense of mystery and intrigue. Can you tell us more about your latest book and what inspired you to explore the theme of supernatural creatures in your storytelling?
Well, the book started really 40 years ago when I was in college. I read a collection of Surrealist short stories, and two of them were good, really good, very memorable, stuck in my mind. The rest you can forget about. They weren't really stories. They were just typical Surrealist stream of consciousness stuff. But there were these two stories. One was called The Fashionable Tiger, and the other one was called The Debutante. The tiger story was written by a French screenwriter named Jean Ferry. The other one, The Debutante, was written by Leonora Carrington, who was an English painter who also wrote, a surrealist. She was British, but she lived most of her life in Mexico, which is where I first heard of her and saw her work. Both of them were sort of about transformation. The Debutante was about a woman a young woman who made friends with a hyena at the zoo and taught her how to speak French, and the hyena taught her language. And they ended up switching roles in a funny way. Very terrifying way, actually, but it's a very funny story. And the tiger, The Fashionable Tiger, was more about, not so much about an inner beast, but a beast growing in society, like a soul sickness. And anyway, both of these stories stuck in my mind for years, for decades. I wanted to illustrate both of them. It turned out there were problems getting permission from the Carrington estate, but I did get permission from the Tiger estate. And I retranslated the story from the French, and my title for it is The Tiger in Vogue. And I stumbled by accident across a story by Lincoln Michel, which became The Werewolf at Dusk. I thought I needed a third story. And as it happened, I had kept a record of my dreams, as I usually do, which eventually became A Walk in the Old City, the second story. It's not exactly about transformation, but it's certainly about growing old and finding that one hasn't solved one's problems, which is sort of the theme of Werewolf at Dusk as well. It's a surprise, to some people to reach their 80s and 90s and find that they're not the wise old people that everybody's taught, that you're automatically going to turn into when you get old. The book is doing very well. I'm very happy. The reviews have all been great. Yeah.
As we celebrate David's amazing contributions to literature and art, we're excited to see what's next in his impressive career. David Small, thank you for sharing your incredible creativity and talent with us. Your powerful illustrations and heartfelt stories have left a mark that will inspire us for the years to come.
Well, thanks for that encouragement.
Thank you. Keep doing what you do.